Hi, and welcome back to the channel. Today's story is going to be another little different one, like the stolen car one from last week. This week, we're going to cover something that's not a murder and nobody went missing, at least not in the traditional sense. This story involves two people's reputations, their sense of safety, their ability to just exist online without looking over their shoulders, all went missing. And it all started with a conversation that lasted less than about a minute. This is the story of Sam Wall, a social media consultant from Manchester, England, who met a motivational speaker named Brad Burton for approximately 30 seconds at a business event.
A woman is jailed for cyberstalking a man for 4 years after meeting him for less than a minute.
She tried to weaponise the internet, and we've had 4 or 5 years of constant abuse.
Samantha Wall sent hundreds of abusive messages online to Brad Burton and a businesswoman, Naomi Timperley. Samantha Wall accused Brad Burton of making death threats, breaking her windows and killing her cat.
They took a selfie together. She left a nice testimonial.
Today was absolutely inspirational.
2 years later, she launched into what a judge would eventually call stalking of the most egregious kind. Now, before we get into this, I want to say up front that this case involves mental health. Sam Wall was diagnosed with a chronic delusional disorder, and that's going to be important to the context of this story as we go through it. But it's also important to note that mental illness doesn't erase the real harm that was done to real people over the course of years. Both things can be true at the same time. So let's set the scene. It's January 2019. Brad Burton is hosting one of his business networking workshops at Aston Villa Football Club in Birmingham, England.
You're going to love him. Please welcome to the stage, Brad Burton.
There are about 200 people in attendance, and Sam Wall attends the event, and at some point during the day, she approaches Burton. They chat for less than 2 minutes. She asks if they can take a photo together, and he says sure, because that's what you do when you're running these kinds of events. You meet people, you pose for photos, you shake hands. That's how you build your business. His friend Alan Price is there too, and he's actually in the photo with them. Burton later describes this meeting as completely unremarkable. It's just one of thousands of people he's met over the years doing his kind of work.
She was painting a picture that somewhere along the way that I had done all these things and I was trying to cover it up. Social media, the way it works, is guilty until proven innocent.
And for a while, that's all it was. Unremarkable, forgettable even. But then, in late 2019 and into 2020, Burton starts hearing from colleagues that there are social media posts about him. Posts claiming he'd been harassing someone named Sam Wall for over a decade, which was confusing because he'd only met her that one time less than a year earlier. And Alan Price, the friend who introduced them, can verify this because he was there when they met, and he's in the photo with her. And here's where things then really start to spiral. Wall begins posting across multiple platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at the time, now X. And these aren't just angry tweets or vague complaints. These are detailed, elaborate accusations. One post of hers was over 20,000 words long. 20,000! That's longer than some novellas. Heck, I think my husband's PhD thesis wasn't that long. She accuses Burton of poisoning her cat, of making death threats, of putting a tracking device on her car, of breaking her windows and slashing her tires, of having affairs, of trying to kill her. But none of this is true. None of it. Burton is a self-employed motivational speaker who built his career on networking and reputation. His business depends on people trusting him, hiring him, showing up at his events. And Sam Wall is posting these accusations on LinkedIn, where she has 30,000 followers. LinkedIn, the platform where Burton promotes his work and connects with clients. He tries the standard advice for dealing with online harassment. Don't engage, keep records, report it. He hires an attorney who sends Wall a cease and desist letter. Wall responds by posting the letter online and essentially saying, "Go ahead and sue me. I have no money." The attacks intensify. In June 2022, Sam Wall posts that Burton tried to kill her. She claims he's under police investigation for stalking and harassment, which the irony of that statement, I'm sure, isn't lost on anyone. She says he's been arrested. She then goes on to claim that he's in prison, serving a 9-year sentence. Now, Burton is very much not in prison. He's out living his life, attending events, and running his business. So he does something to prove that the accusations are incorrect. He starts posting pictures of himself online to prove that he's not incarcerated. Look, here I am at this event. Here I am having curry in Somerset with my friend Alan. And what was Wall's response? She claims that those photos are fake. She says, and this really is like the part in this story where I read this and I'm like, wait, what now? Like, I don't know if Sam Wall was a big fan of 80s daytime soap operas, but she claims that Burton has a psychopathic twin brother who's covering for him while he's locked up. Yeah, a psychopathic twin. It really is a story of some soap opera plot. I don't know about you guys, but when I was a kid, I used to watch Days of Our Lives. Now, how did I watch Days of Our Lives? Since I was in grade school and high school at the time, I don't know. I guess maybe I taped it on my VCR, or over the summer, you could get kind of caught up on the story. You know, soap operas in the day weren't something you had to watch every day. You could literally miss months and kind of pick it back up because the stories were so slow and evolving. Back at the time, Bo and Hope on Days of Our Lives were the really big story. And then there was some psychopathic twin stuff, or maybe I'm just thinking there's always some evil guy, right, who's out to destroy the city or the world. And I can't remember his name, maybe Scorpio? If you know the name of the evil guy in Days of Our Lives, drop that in the comment. I know at some point though, Marlena had like a crazy twin, or maybe she just had a dual personality. I gotta go back and Wikipedia that stuff. But back to the story of Sam Wall. Sorry, little tangent there. But the psychopathic twin, and she really claims that Burton is in prison and that it's his twin who's out filming or making posts to kind of prove that he's really not in prison. Now, what gets amazing here is that Burton isn't Sam Wall's only victim. There's also Naomi Tipperley, who is a well-known figure in the Manchester tech scene. Tipperley had never even met Sam Wall. They were connected on Twitter and LinkedIn in the way a lot of business professionals are. But that's it. There was no real relationship there. It's just two people who existed in similar professional circles. And Tipperley makes what turns out to be a mistake. In the saying no good deed goes unpunished, this is the perfect example. She warned Wall to stop attacking fellow business people online, and that's all it took. Suddenly, Tipperley became a target too. Wall accused her of criminal damage, of destroying her business, of being part of something she called gang stalking, which I had to go look that up, and it's a conspiracy theory where people believe they're being followed and harassed by large groups of people who are working together. Tipperley is accused of being part of this imaginary group conspiracy. Wall falsely claims that Tipperley has been arrested for harassment. And remember, Tipperley and Wall have never even actually met. They were just connected on social media. That's the entire foundation of their relationship. Tipperley later tells BBC Panorama, which for those of you unfamiliar is a major investigative journalism program in the UK, kind of like 60 Minutes here in the United States. And Tipperley says, "It's just been hideous, really hideous, and I don't know why it happened. I'm still really anxious. Sometimes I get really sad." And here's the thing that makes this case even more frustrating, is that Burton and Tipperley report Wall's posts to the social media companies over and over again, as well as reporting them to the police. They flag the content for the social media companies that is false, and they explain how they're false accusations, and they point out the harassment, and the companies do absolutely nothing. Even after Wall is arrested in September of 2022, the posts stay up. And even after she's charged, they stay up. Even after she pleads guilty, which you'd think would be the point where social media companies would feel pretty safe, the woman's admitting to harassing these people. You'd think at that point they would take the post down, but Sam Wall pleads guilty in November of 2024 and the posts stay up. LinkedIn, which has policies against bullying and harassment, leaves Sam Wall's account active. Facebook, Instagram, and X, all of them leave the posts up. BBC Panorama contacts all 4 companies for a comment, and only LinkedIn responds. And their response is basically, we don't allow bullying, but we can't comment on individual cases, which is a very corporate way of saying, we're not going to do anything about it. Now, Panorama also speaks to other victims who didn't want to be identified. They say they were stalked by Wall for over a decade. One person says he received thousands of texts and emails that were 10,000 words long. Wall would show up at his workplace pretending to be his wife and accusing him of domestic abuse. Can you imagine just this woman shows up and she's making all these accusations? Hopefully maybe your coworkers know your wife and know that this woman isn't your wife, but still you would just feel this sense of just when is she going to show up next and what is she going to say next and who's going to believe her? Another victim is Justine Wright, a marketing consultant who had briefly employed Wall for a couple of months. When Wall left that job, the stalking began. Wright says Wall repeatedly targeted her clients, major companies, with false claims. And here's a detail that shows just how disconnected from reality some of these accusations were. Wall accused Wright of conspiring with Burton to poison her cat. Wright had never even met Burton. And here's what I keep thinking about. The statistics on how many people are victims of online crime is staggering. The Cyber Helpline, which is a British charity, estimates that 600,000 people report online stalking to the police every year in the UK. 600,000. And out of that 600,000, fewer than 2% of stalking and harassment complaints in the UK end with a conviction. 2%. And the numbers in the United States are even more staggering. According to CDC data, about 7.5 million people experience cyberstalking each year in the United States. That's roughly 1 in 5 women and 1 in 10 men who have been stalked at some point in their lives. And like in the UK, conviction rates are dismally low. A major review by policing bodies found a lack of understanding of online stalking and evidence of police failing to take it seriously, which, when you think about it, makes a certain kind of sense. If you've never experienced online harassment, it might seem less urgent than physical stalking. There's no one lurking outside your house, there's no one following you to work, but the impact can be just as devastating, and sometimes perhaps even more so, because the harassment is public, it's permanent, and it reaches everyone you know professionally and personally. Both Burton and Timperley say they were unhappy with the initial response that they got from the Greater Manchester Police, though, to be fair, the police do eventually build a case and make an arrest. Wall was arrested in September of 2022. She maintained at the time that she was the victim. A month later, she was released on bail, and what do you think she does? Yep, she immediately restarts her campaign of online stalking. She's back on social media posting the same false accusations, adding new ones, doubling down on the claim that Burton is in prison and has a fictional twin psychotic brother. She pleads guilty to charges of stalking and sending false messages at Manchester's Magistrates Court in November of 2024. The case is in relation to 2 of her victims, Burton and Timperley, who were targeted over a 4-year period. And then the sentencing gets delayed. Not once, not twice, not 3 times, not 4 times, but 5 times. And each time, Wall's defense team got a last-minute adjournment. They submitted a psychiatric report showing that she has chronic delusional mental health illness. They argue that she needs treatment and not prison, and they say that she's been targeted with online abuse herself since the case became public. Her lawyer, Emma Clark, told the court that Wall is crying out for support, guidance, and medical intervention. Burton and Timperley wait. They've been waiting for years at this point. The posts are still up. Wall is still active on LinkedIn, even in the hours leading up to what's supposed to be her sentencing hearing. And the delays are getting absurd. Finally, on October 24th of 2025, the case moves forward and Judge Neil Usher hands down the sentence. 28 months in prison for the offenses against Burton, 24 months for the offenses against Timperley, but to run concurrently. Wall will be eligible for parole in 14 months. She's also given an indefinite restraining order and ordered to surrender all of her electronic devices. I seriously doubt that will actually work. In his sentencing remarks, Judge Usher doesn't mince any words. He described Wall's campaign as breathtaking. He added that it was a deliberate and calculated campaign of online stalking of the most egregious kind. He told her this was an unrelenting barrage of abuse designed to maximize fear and distress, and added, "Your name has become synonymous with online stalking." I would kind of say that whole baby reindeer thing became synonymous, but that wasn't even so much online stalking. I guess that was more in-person stalking, but she used email in that to stalk. But this is similar to that case. It just hasn't had a Netflix story written about it yet. That's the legacy Wall created for herself, not as a successful social media consultant, not as someone with 30,000 LinkedIn followers who had built a professional brand, but as someone who now in the UK is known as being synonymous with online stalking. Burton read a victim impact statement in court. He said that the word that captures the impact is traumatic. He talked about how Wall's relentless campaign of lies dominated every corner of his existence, mentally, emotionally, financially, and digitally. He spent decades building a career from nothing, establishing a nationwide business network, writing books, and inspiring thousands of people. And Wall's fabricated accusation tarnished his name, eroded trust, and devastated his family's sense of security. Tipperley tells the court that that the internet was weaponized against me. Digital stalking is still stalking. Even after the conviction and even after the sentencing, the posts remained up. Wall's LinkedIn account, which had dropped to, but still a lot of followers with 27,000, was still active at the time of her conviction. Her private Instagram account with over 4,500 followers was still active, and the false accusations were still there for anyone to Google. Anyone who searched Burton's or Tipperley's names can find Wall's lies. Burton wrote about LinkedIn. LinkedIn management, hold your heads in shame. It's disgusting. This case could have ended with a tragic outcome. And outside of court, Tipperley added, you can be abused by someone and complain about it. Very defamatory stuff and false accusations, and they never did anything. I think it's really, really sad that as a victim of crime, I haven't been protected by them. Others in the community asked of LinkedIn, why have you not removed this account, meaning Sam Wall's, despite repeated requests and a conviction? And I think that's a question that this case really brings up, is what exactly does it take for social media companies to act? If a guilty plea isn't enough, if a conviction isn't enough, if a judge calling someone's behavior stalking of the most egregious kind isn't enough, then what is enough? And I think there's something broken about our system. It's interesting to think about how long at this point social media has really existed, but I still feel we're kind of in the Wild West of deciding how to police these social media sites. And listen, I live in the United States. I am a huge supporter of the First Amendment, but the First Amendment is about speech against your government and that you have the right to say what you want without the government coming and arresting you for it. You can criticize your political leaders, but defamation is a crime, and it certainly is something that should be taken seriously. And I'm not saying that I think immediately that if you report a post as being harassing, that the social media company has to take your word for it and take the post down. But I think there comes a point where if enough allegations are being made, and certainly when somebody is pleading guilty to online stalking, maybe that's a time to take a second look at it. Another aspect of this case is the mental health aspect to everything. Wall's defense presented a psychiatric report diagnosing her with a chronic delusional disorder, which is a real illness, and people with delusional orders genuinely believe things that aren't true, and those beliefs can be resistant to evidence and logic. It's not something that Wall chose to have, and yet how do you handle that in a world in which oftentimes it is so hard to get access to good mental health care? And what do we do with people who have a mental illness and aren't really interested in treating it? And I'm not saying that Sam Wall wasn't interested in treating this illness, but there are many people who, because of their illness, also don't want to treat their illness. It puts everybody in a bit of a quandary. The judge pointed out that having a delusional disorder didn't compel Sam Wall to act in the way that she did. Mental illness can explain behavior without excusing it, and the harm done to Burton, Timperley, and the other victims is real, regardless of Wall's mental state. It's telling that Wall, who was a social media consultant herself, chose social media as the means of her stalking. She understood how social media worked, how to build a following, how to craft messages to get attention and engagement, because that was her job, and she had 30,000 followers on LinkedIn, so she knew how to use the platform, which means she also probably knew exactly what damage she was doing. But I wonder if she kind of turned to that because, right, that was her job, that's what she knew. So that was the easiest thing, and in her mind, with the mental illness, that made the most sense. Burton, to his credit, says he forgives her. He told the reporters, "I hope she gets the help that she needs and she finds peace in her life." I don't know that I'd be that generous after 4 years of having my name dragged through the mud and my business nearly destroyed and my family terrorized, but maybe that's the kind of grace you find when you make it through something like this. Timperley is less forgiving, which, seems fair. She says she feels relief that Wall has been sentenced, but added that it's going to take a long time to repair the damage that's been caused. And that damage is ongoing because, again, the posts are still up and the lies are still there. Anyone searching for Burton or Timperley can find Wall's accusations. Their reputations are still potentially being damaged even while Wall sits in prison. The only thing that helps is now that there's been so much media coverage is that when you Google, you find a lot of the media coverage first. So what are a few takeaways from this story? First, online stalking is devastatingly real and often not taken seriously enough. The police in many cases don't have the training or resources to handle it. Very few cases actually end up with an investigation, and even when investigations do happen, the technology element sometimes means that it takes years to get to a point where evidence is even being looked at. Second, the standard advice for dealing with online harassment, don't engage, keep records, report it, oftentimes isn't enough. Burton and Timperley did everything right. They reported the posts repeatedly. They went to the police. They got lawyers involved. They followed every piece of conventional wisdom, and the harassment continued for years. Third, social media companies have enormous power and almost no accountability when it comes to protecting users from harassment. They can decide what to take down, when to take it down, and how to take it down. And they can say that they comply with the law, but there's no real mechanism to force them to act, even when someone is convicted of a crime. And lastly, fourth, this might be the most unsettling part, is that this can happen to anyone. Burton met Wall for about 30 seconds. 30 seconds. That was the extent of their in-person interaction. Timperley had never met Wall and only was connected to her on social media. Other victims had similarly minimal contact. You don't have to have a relationship with someone for them to become fixated on you. You don't have to do anything to provoke it. Sometimes it's just random. Sometimes it's just bad luck. Burton built his career on networking, on meeting people, and on being accessible. That openness is what allowed him to succeed, but it's also what made him vulnerable. This case also raises questions about how we think about public figures and privacy. Burton is a motivational speaker, so he's required to be visible, to share aspects of his life, and to be present on social media. But that visibility comes with a risk, and we don't have good systems in place to protect people when that risk materializes into actual harm. There's just no real satisfying end here. Wall is in prison, but she's eligible for parole in 14 short months. The posts are still up, and Burton and Timperley's reputations are still damaged. The other victims, some of whom were stalked for over a decade, are still trying to rebuild their lives. And statistically, this is happening to hundreds of thousands of people every year, and almost none of them get justice. So I guess if there's one takeaway from all this, it's that maybe just we need to do better. The police need better training on online stalking. Social media companies need to take their responsibility seriously and try to protect users when they're being harassed, especially when there's a conviction involved. And the legal system needs to move faster so that victims aren't waiting for years for resolution while the abuse continues. And maybe, just as a society, we can all recognize and take online harassment more seriously. Not as something less real than physical stalking, but as something that can be just as devastating and sometimes harder to escape because it follows you everywhere. It's visible to everyone you know, and it may never truly go away. Burton spent 4 years being accused of crimes he didn't commit and of being a person that he's not. Timberly spent 2.5 years watching her name get dragged through the dirt for no reason other than that she existed in the same professional space as her harasser. The other victims spent even longer living in fear. And all of it may have been prevented if the platforms where it were happening or the police had taken action when it was first reported. So there you have it. There's the story of how a 30-second meeting turned into a 4-year nightmare. How a selfie at a business event became the starting point for one of the most egregious stalking cases in UK history, and how the platforms designed to connect people can be weaponized to destroy them. Let me know what you think in the comments. Should social media companies be legally required to remove content when someone is convicted of using their platform to harass others? And if you or someone you know is dealing with online stalking, read the description for some links to resources in both the UK and the United States. Until next time, stay safe and stay careful, and maybe think twice about who you're taking selfies with. Thanks for watching.